Scott, can you hear me? Oh dear. Can people hear me? We are really truly having technical problems. I am not sure what to do about this. So, folks, I don't know what to do about this. I do not know how to get rid of this echo. I am going to. Oh, I know, terrible echo. It's so terrible I can't speak because it's on my side as well, and I don't understand how to fix this. So, folks, I'm gonna hang up. Oh, I'm not gonna hang up. Scott is trying to call me. We're gonna try to troubleshoot this, so bear with me. Can folks hear me now? If someone could just type in the chat that you can hear me. Lovely. Lovely. All right, Scott, I'll hang up. We're getting through this. It's 2020. It's COVID. All right, folks. Let me just for a second share my screen and make sure that works. Okay, beautiful folks. I hope that you can hear me. I'm not able to actually share my screen and see the chat. So I'm just assuming that I'm going to get a quick text message from Scott telling me that he can hear me. All right, well, so without further ado, that was fun. I apologize for that. That was 8 minutes of getting used to a new platform. We've been speaking across the country and folks have different platforms, and this is kind of a wonderful time to experience the different platforms and learn which ones work really well. And it's clear from the keynote, your wonderful, fabulous introduction, that this works really well. Just bear with me for getting to know it. Great, I got a text from Scott telling me that I'm good. All right, so folks, here we go. Hey, welcome to the end of October. Welcome to this session. I'm going to be sharing with you how Ancor seeks to bridge the divide, and really specifically Ancor's Fall 2020 Fall Policy Agenda and what it looks like moving forward. And given the climate we're in, that will be pretty interesting. So here we go. So let me just kind of give you the who is Ancor, because I'm certain that there are some of you that are in the audience that perhaps aren't as familiar with us as I'd like you to be. So, we are the National Trade Association representing private providers of services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This is our 50th year. We were planning a great, big, huge party at the National Archives. It was to have happened about a week ago. But we've moved it to next year, so we'll be celebrating 50 years during our 51st year. Our mission is really simple and straightforward. It is to advance the ability of our members in supporting people with IDD to fully participate in their communities. We represent over 1,600 private providers of services. That includes 57 state provider associations, very proudly, APRA. Thank you. We also have quadrupled our membership over the last 3 years through piloting a new option for Ancor membership, which we're calling our 100% state association membership. And through that, we have welcomed the entire membership of both of our Pennsylvania state associations, our Massachusetts Association, Maine, Connecticut, the Ohio Healthcare Association, ICFs, Oregon, and Iowa. We're very diverse. Our members represent organizations that were started by parents going back to the 1800s. One was started as an orphanage during the Civil War in Washington, D.C. We include many recent startups. We include lots of faith-based organizations, chapters of the ARC of the U.S., every single United Cerebral Palsy affiliate, some Easter Seals, some Goodwills, and many more. Our members included some of the smallest providers in the country to the largest providers in the country. And the diversity of the services offered represents the array of services that I'm sure is represented by all of your agencies. So we position ourselves to be an indispensable resource and advocate for all of you as you're navigating COVID-19 and our ongoing workforce crisis, which has enormously challenged us going back to 2001. So let me start out by, that's Ancor. That's kind of the brief run through. Let me start out by sharing this slide, which I absolutely love. Shannon McCracken, our Vice President of Government Relations, shared it during her presentation during our Public Policy Summit that we just concluded a couple of weeks ago. It just really clearly shows we're living in a world upside down. And so I thought, as I put together this presentation for you today, that would be a good way to explain that I am going to share some slides. My next couple of slides are slides that I usually put at the end of a presentation, but I really wanted to flip it and put it at the front, given how much we have to talk about. And I wanted to make sure I had time. So here we go. Save the date. We were originally thinking that our annual conference was going to be in April of 2021 after having to cancel, obviously, the in-person Miami event last April. We have now rescheduled it to have it happen in June, and pandemic, God willing, we're going to be able to safely gather in Miami in April. So save that date, June 14th to the 16th. Also, we are doing a call for proposals for our conference. You can see where to go. Please, if you're doing something exciting that you want to share, please consider submitting a proposal. And then, last but absolutely never least, we have launched during National DSP Week at the beginning of September, the National Awards, our 2021 DSP of the Year Awards. please nominate someone. My Lord, you have gazillions of people. I know it's always difficult to figure out who you're going to nominate. If you've nominated someone in the past and they haven't been selected as either the Ohio State winner or our national winner, please consider renominating them. And the deadline is November 20th. So here we go. And now my rotating slides that are a little difficult to control have come to an end. So I just want to share that Ohio has an extraordinary legacy of leadership with Ancor. Your current volunteer leaders are occupying the highest positions in Ancor, starting with Diane Beestrom, who was just elected and just began her first year as vice president of the Ancor Board of Directors. Tony Thomas, who serves on the board of directors because he was elected by his peers from the Ancor Board of Representatives. Karen Knavel and Patrick Navel, Patrick Maynard represent Ohio on the Ancor Board of Representatives. So you guys are just, powerhouses, and you've really made your voices heard. Ohio is an incredibly important state. And it's just enormously helpful for us to really understand from multiple representatives what you need from your national organization. But isn't someone missing? Right? This is where I wish I could see faces. Let's see. Is someone missing? Is someone missing? Of course someone's missing. And there he is. And there I am. And we took that picture in Portland, Oregon last year. This is actually when Than Johnson and I launched the Johnson Merrill ticket for president. Obviously, no one nominated us, but Than Johnson, such an extraordinary legacy of Ancor leadership. He currently doesn't occupy a seat on the Ancor board or a co-chairmanship of the PAC, but let me just kind of share. He's served on the Ancor board multiple times. He has served as president of the board of directors. He has co-chaired our government relations committee. He has served on our government relations advisory committee. He has co-chaired our political action committee. He is currently co-chairing our ICF committee. He has served on the Ancor Foundation Board of Trustees. He has served on the Leadership Development Committee. And he was inducted into the 2011 Ancor Legacy Leaders Circle. And just a few years ago, we gave him the Sue Ellen Galbraith Advocacy Award for Excellence. So thank you, Than. So what are all these folks focused on? I wanted to share this slide with you, and I'll have Melissa or Scott send it out to all of you if you want to look at it more at your leisure. But this is what the Ancor Board of Directors has set as our strategic direction. This is our 5-year strategic plan, obviously put in the form of a house with the roof, just reiterating our mission, and the 4 pillars, which are our large overarching goals, holding up the roof to influence responsible public policy, to obtain the resources to attract and retain a quality workforce, to be an indispensable resource to equip you in understanding and responding to impacts and opportunities and emerging practices and trends, and really importantly, for us to be in a position to shape the future of service model deliveries to ensure sustainable services. And all of that is held up by the foundation. And the foundation is what we're doing at Ancor to grow our public policy influence, to increase our geographic spread, to ensure that we're representing the diversity of service models, and by partnering strategically. This is more of a deep dive into the strategic direction. You can go back and look at this at your leisure. Let me just share our third quarter Ancor advocacy numbers. Clearly this has been an unusual year. This is continuing to be an unusual year. This is a year for the history books, and not in the way that we wanted it to be. But our Ancor members, you guys have responded to our action alerts in just absolutely extraordinary numbers. You know, this is a report, Diane and Tony will recognize it, that I presented to the Ancor board at their meeting just earlier this month. We've had 44, just in the last quarter alone, we've had 44,000 advocates send almost 184 emails, tweets, and calls to Congress. Our staff has had 60 meetings with congressional staff since June. You know, we are continuing to profile direct support professionals in our Forgotten Faces campaign. We have profiled 8 providers in a brief that we're going to be releasing tomorrow that provides really significant case studies about how providers are incredibly grateful to have gotten the federal fiscal relief that you've gotten, but how it is still inadequate and people need more. And we've made 7 donations to our political action committee to champions, totaling $11,000. So those are the highlight numbers. So here's this next slide. I love this slide. I hope you can see it well. But this slide, because I'm all about competition, and I am sure that you Buckeyes also enjoy a little competitive activity. But this shows the top 10 states with the highest total advocates using our tools this year, right? And so, you know, for context, in 2016, we had 1,500 members respond to our action alerts, send emails to our members of Congress. 2017, which was the year of the per capita caps block grant fight, in other words, saving Medicaid as we know it, that obviously bumped up a huge amount to 10,000 people taking action. But now look at this year. 44,000 folks have taken action. New York State has led. Not surprisingly, the pandemic hit there first. New York obviously has a very large population, but Ohio, you're not far behind in population. Pennsylvania, also an early COVID epicenter state, is second in the pack with 4,000 people taking action now. But I am delighted that Ohio is in the top 10, right? This is a top 10 out of all 50 states, plus the territories. You've had 1,300 people take action. I know you can do more. I know you can do more. So, but this is what you've done. You know, this is what we have all collectively done. At the beginning of this pandemic, you know, there was nothing, right? We've heard from our members across the states that the states weren't providing information, the CDC wasn't providing information, the other federal agencies were not providing information, but we went to town. You guys told us what you needed, and together, you know, we really amped up the advocacy. So the second tranche announcement, finally included $15 billion for Medicaid providers. It was also part of phase 1, but that had been targeted for Medicaid, for Medicare providers only. We really quickly realized that providers that had received any Medicare funding were locked out of that tranche announcement. I hope you guys applied under that. In July, the end of July, CMS then started really figuring out the providers that got locked out because they'd gotten a little bit of Medicare money, and they announced a general distribution fund that was extended through August 28th. It was later extended through September 13th. That was a huge accomplishment because, as you remember, in those first bills that were passed by Congress, although we had some key wins in it, there wasn't specific relief for our space. On October 4th, another portal was opened, another opportunity. If you haven't looked really carefully at this, I strongly urge you to. It's an allocation of $20 billion Providers who previously received, rejected, or even accepted a general distribution payment, you can apply for more, even if you've already applied for and gotten the 2% of your revenues through the earlier tranche announcement. Please look really closely at that. We think that it's critically important. So, what else is our government relations team working on today? In addition to everything I just shared with you, they're working really specifically on continuing the push for a fourth COVID relief package. So if you're like me, and you're a little bit of a political junkie, a public policy junkie, or if you're a normal person and you're not a junkie, you still nevertheless are probably very aware that Congress just went home. The United States Senate just confirmed Amy Coney Barrett to take the place of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And with that, Congress went home, thus absolutely sealing the fact that there is not going to be a fourth package before the election this coming Tuesday. That was extraordinarily frustrating for us. Earlier, by the end of spring, the beginning of summer, the House had passed the HEROES Act, which included an extra 6% FMAP bump for Medicaid. It included targeted money specifically for states' general funds, and it included really specifically hazard pay for frontline workers and a dedicated FMAP bump for home and community services. The Senate just never went there. What's going to happen after Election Day? Will there be a package during lame duck? Stay tuned. It's entirely possible. It's also possible that it won't happen, but it will. I can guarantee you this. It won't happen unless we continue to keep our voices as extraordinarily loud as possible. Meanwhile, let me go back to my earlier slide. These earlier slides, please. Our staff is working hard to continue to navigate the portals that have been open and ensure that you know what you need to know to apply for the money and ensure that you're in compliance with the reporting requirements. So what else is happening? Let's kind of go back to it. This is 2020. There's a lot happening. Just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe less than 2 weeks ago, United States Senators Patty Murray, Democrat from Washington State and ranking member of the Senate Help Committee, United States Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, obviously ran for president, and United States Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire sent a letter to CMS urging CMS to collect and report COVID-19 data in congregate care facilities, including assisted living facilities, institutions for people with disabilities, group homes, and mental health facilities. The senators noted that the data collection for skilled nursing facilities has been robust, but despite the high risk of contracting COVID for older Americans, these other populations have not seen the type of consistent and robust data collection. I'm going to give you another slide specific from the press release that these three senators sent out. Picking up on that quote that I just read in the earlier slide, the senators, go on to say, because this is the point, as a result, federal government officials, public health experts, and the public have no comprehensive information on COVID-19 occurrence and fatality rates in various congregate care facilities, all while residents continue to face a public health threat. So, what does that mean? I'm not exactly aware of the extent to which Ohio is collecting data. I know that you are a state that has historically been great in collecting data. What does it mean when these 3 United States senators who are serving in the minority in the United States Senate send a letter to Seema Verma urging CMS to collect this data? Well, I'll share that I think that it's fairly clear that the results of the national election will likely determine whether or not CMS starts collecting this data. As I've shared repeatedly, so forgive me if you've heard me say it before, this pandemic has truly laid bare the weaknesses of the state-federal partnership that is Medicaid. Why has data been collected much more consistently in the nursing facility space? Well, here's the obvious initial answer. Seniors living in nursing homes, residing in nursing homes, were enormously disproportionately impacted. The nation watched with kind of horror as we saw the reports coming out of New York State initially, and then started to spread across the country. Clearly, because nursing facilities, almost every nursing facility, bills Medicare under the skilled rehab option. They have a direct relationship, and CMS is a direct payer of nursing facilities. That's not the case in our space. The tranche payments have frankly been the first time that IDD providers have gotten direct payment from the federal government in a very, very long time, if at all. Will CMS take note and start collecting this data? The early indication is that they're saying, no, this is up to the states to do it. But we'll see. And certainly if Joe Biden is elected, if the Senate, if the Democrats capture control of the United States Senate, I think that you're going to start seeing a lot more data requirements done consistently across the country. So let me do a quick time check. These are such serious topics. So what else? I'm not transitioning from this topic, but I want to share what else our government relations team is working on. Yesterday in the state of Pennsylvania, an 8-state COVID IDD mortality analysis was released in a press conference conducted by Opera's former CEO, Mark Davis, now the CEO of PAR, one of Ancor's 2 Pennsylvania state trade associations. This analysis this analysis includes obviously only 8 states. The facilitation of the information that went into to this analysis was supported through the Ancor State Association's platform. Specifically, the data requested was state-level data. This was not a study and research, an analysis of a survey that went directly to providers. States that contributed to this report include California, Indiana, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Colorado, and I'm not remembering the other state off the top of my head. We are going to be doing a special members only briefing on this analysis. We're hoping to schedule it for tomorrow. What is the bottom line? The bottom line is that providers have been doing an extraordinarily good job keeping people safe. Despite the early reports out of New York, reported by the New York Times, reported by National Public Radio of New York and Pennsylvania, reported by Newsweek and numerous other outlets of analyses done by SUNY, the State University of New York, one of the SUNYs, I should say, and Syracuse University, where those early analyses showed people dying 5 times, people with IDD contracting the rate of contracting the virus at 5 times the rate of the general population, and also dying at 5 times the rate. That was the first New York City analysis. The other two that I referenced, the NPR analysis and the Syracuse and SUNY analysis, showed a lower rate of contraction, a lower mortality rate, nevertheless still extraordinarily concerning, of 2.5 times the rate of the general population to die. The report released yesterday that is broader, that includes the state of California, that includes Colorado, that includes Indiana, shows that people with IDD are not contracting the rate. People in services are not contracting the virus at a rate greater than the general population. But when they do get sick with the virus, they are dying at twice the rate of the general population. So please, when you get the notification that we're doing this briefing, please join us. Data is critically important to equip your state level advocacy, our federal advocacy. I'm also delighted to share that we're going to be releasing, as I guess I've already mentioned it, a brief that includes case studies of how providers have received some money to date but are going to need more. So both of those products are going to be extraordinarily helpful, sobering, but of course these times are sobering for your advocacy. So what else are we doing? We are once again seeking another EVV delay. The deadline is January 1st. I believe that Ohio is marching forward. Some states aren't. There's at least one state, Massachusetts, that's already told the federal government that they are not going to implement EVV, and that they are actually going to take the financial penalty. A number of states aren't ready. We were able, as I hope you know, to secure a 1-year delay last year, and we're hoping to secure another one. United States Senator Collins and Representative Smith and Doyle, have been leading the charge in urging CMS to delay it. But CMS is wanting statutory authority. So we're just keeping the pressure on, and stay tuned. What else are we working on? We've been working very hard in the last month and a half on the vaccine prioritization framework. That work has absolutely moved on to the states now. But our work has been in ensuring that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and our staff are prioritized in the early distribution of a vaccine whenever a vaccine or vaccines become available. We're also working hard on getting CMS to become far more flexible with regard to retainer payments. Representative Woodall from Georgia is leading a congressional sign-on letter urging extensions of those retainer payments. We know how much that matters, and we've been working in just terrific partnership with the National Association for State DD Directors. Your former DD Director John Martin was the last president of NASD's. That's an extraordinarily strong partnership for Ancor, and when we work together, we're just really powerful. We're also working on, in fact, I think Shannon McCracken released our comments yesterday, the template for our comments yesterday on the Fair Labor Standards Act independent contractor status. The Federal Department of Labor had put out proposed regs. We commented we're going to want as many Ancor members as possible jumping in, so if you haven't seen that pushed out yet, you will see it soon. And we're also working on our response to the CMS request for information on what quality measurements should be used for home and community services. Obviously, another extraordinarily important thing. CMS is not proposing voluntary quality measurements, but what gets recommended to states may be voluntary today, may be mandatory tomorrow. In any case, extraordinarily important. So what else are we working on, or what else are we following? I've been doing a presentation to a state conference almost weekly lately, and I'm just kind of over and over and over again amazed. I don't know why any of us are amazed this year, of the volume, the velocity of breaking news that happens on a daily basis. And obviously on all variety of topics, but really specific to our state, to our space. Just last week, the news broke that the Trump administration is partnering with CVS and Walgreens to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to protect folks in long-term care facilities nationwide. This is a really exciting development. The Trump administration's Operation Warp Speed announced agreements with CVS and Walgreens. The program is going to be free of charge to all facilities. It's going to be available to residents in all long-term care settings, including SNFs, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, residential care homes, and adult family homes. The second that broke, we were emailing the folks in that program to get really clear confirmation that means us, because when I look at gosh, folks, don't you love working remotely? I know lots of you in your office, but I'm in obviously my home, and I see a tractor go by just like 30 feet away from my door. I hope the sound isn't interrupting. Shannon immediately emailed the agency and to ask if we are eligible, and here was the answer. And it's in bold down here. Decisions regarding which patient populations will be eligible for vaccination in the first phases of vaccine availability await ACIP recommendations. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Stay tuned and know that we are working, we are advocating relentlessly to ensure that that not just intermediate care facilities, but all waiver residential settings are eligible, as well as folks that are receiving day services and living in their own homes. So what else has been happening? This week. Let's see, today's Wednesday? I think this was Monday, that first bullet, when the Department of Health and Human Services announced that Medicaid and Medicare will cover 100% of the cost of COVID-19 vaccinations. That's great. That's terrific. But where's the vaccine, right? If you're reading the papers as carefully as we are, if you had an opportunity to attend the keynote presentation for our public policy summit when we heard from the the noted epidemiologist, Dr. Michael Osterholm, widespread distribution of the vaccine isn't happening soon. And further confirmation of that happened just this morning when Pfizer announced that it will not make its prediction of having something ready by this month. They had been really, pretty confidently predicting that they'd have something ready. AstraZeneca and who else? And the other one had previously announced this month that they paused their clinical trials. Will we have a vaccine? Of course we will, because we can't not have a vaccine. How soon will we have a vaccine? I'm guessing something will be approved by January. The distribution of it will be challenging. But know that frontline essential workers will be prioritized, and people with comorbidities will be prioritized in phase 1, and in phase 2, other folks living in congregate settings who don't fit the comorbidity designation. So, I'm doing another time check. Any guesses for... Oh, hang on a second. I want to make sure that Scott's not texting me. Oh no, really? Have you not been seeing my screen, folks? Hang on a second. Hi, folks. I'm back, and I just noted that Scott at 11:53 had told me that I needed to share my screen again. So fortunately, I read almost all of the slides. I don't know why the screen sharing stopped. Can people hear me right now? I'm now. Great, Justin. Fabulous, Anthony. But I don't understand, and I apologize. I do not understand why the screen sharing stopped working. But I'm going to send it to you. As I shared, I really verbally did take you through all of the slides, and we'll push these out immediately. So that was the last one. The last bullet point on the slide that you weren't able to see was this, pretty simple. It was, hey, any guesses for what's going to drop today? Let me just, use these remaining minutes to talk about what's going to happen after Election Day. And, clearly I'm not going to talk at all about whether we'll have I'm not going to talk about who's going to win. I'm not, but I will share with you that if President Trump wins another election, I think that it's pretty clear from a policy perspective what we can expect. We were absolutely delighted when Administrator Seema Verma of CMS announced, just about a month ago, that they were taking the Medicaid Fiscal Accountability Regulation, MFAR, off of the regulatory docket. What does all that gobbledygook mean? And why were we cheering? We were cheering because last year, at the end of 2019, it was what I was worried about more than anything else. This is before the pandemic hit and, changed, turned the world upside down. And why were we worried about it? Because the Trump administration, CMS, had put out a proposed regulation, that if adopted as proposed, would have meant the states were going to get a whole lot less federal dollars for Medicaid. The administration was seeking to really clamp down on the extent to which states can leverage Medicaid to pull in additional monies through provider taxes on hospitals, really specifically. We really didn't think that the provider taxes levied against ICFs were going to be implicated, but those provider taxes on hospitals and MCOs and other entities are a strategic move by states to pull down a lot more extra dollars. And so if the feds say you can't do that, that means the states are going to get a lot fewer dollars. We were delighted, as I shared, when about a month ago they pulled back on that, said they're not going to do that this year. But we are already seeing reporting inside the Beltway that if they win another term, we will see MFAR come back. We'll also see if they win another term. If they win another term, it's likely that the United States Senate will also remain in control of the Senate Republicans. I won't be surprised. In fact, I'm expecting another push at block grants. I'm expecting another push at per capita caps. With regard to ADA, Department of Justice enforcement, the Trump administration has gone with a very light hand, as opposed to the Obama administration before them, who sued states in like 40 different matters in over 25 states, on matters ranging from accessibility to specific Olmstead compliance. The home and community-based settings rule, as you know, CMS delayed the implementation date for COVID. We can expect post-COVID the regulation, to go forward. But again, this administration has really had a light touch with that rule. If Joe Biden becomes president, and if the United States Senate flips blue, we can expect a lot more Olmstead DOJ enforcement. We can expect CMS to put pressure on states to comply with the home and community-based settings rule. We do not expect MFAR to go anywhere. That will come to a crashing halt. You can expect the Department of Labor, to resume the type of employee protections that we traditionally see under presidential administrations. There'll be a difference. The other thing that we fully expect to see is the reintroduction of legislation to expand non-institutional home and community-based services and to make it an entitlement. Will ultimately it become an entitlement? That price tag is huge, folks. And with, both Democrats and Republicans staring down a huge federal budget deficit, there may be some real reluctance to opening up a brand new federal entitlement. But one thing you can definitely expect, if there is a Biden administration and if Congress has not already provided really significant state COVID stimulus relief, that there will be an enormous package that will send money directly to the states to use as they see fit, that will likely include an FMAP bump, and we also feel really encouraged that there will be specific relief for home and community services with hazard pay for our frontline workers. So I just covered an enormous amount of stuff, and Pete, it's lovely to see your note. Thank you. I've got 7 minutes? I've said so much. Let me pause, and Scott, if you want to ask folks if they have any particular questions, I'd be happy to take them.
chat, and then I'll turn my screen and camera off if you can see Jamie's question.
Okay, alrighty. Where is Jamie's question? Is Jamie's question further down? Post your questions. I don't see. Barbara, after checking in and listening to our system partners all over the country, what is your general opinion of the emotional health of our system leaders, program professionals, and of course direct support professionals? I sense that our system is in a high state of anxiety. Would I concur? Yes, 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 and yes. Earlier in the late summer, I recorded a piece for NADSP, the National Association for Direct Support Professionals. I recorded it in another room in my house where I had behind me a fairly famous Andrew Wyeth painting, the one with the dog, the white lab, on a bed. I love that picture. I really directly included that as my background when I did that message to direct support professionals, to share the message and just kind of share my own personal story. I never used to be that kind of dog owner or mother whoever permitted animals on the bed, whoever allowed dogs on the couch. But boy, it was just, it's really kind of my little analogy for, this is the most extraordinary, this is our World War II, guys. Right? I mean, this is a moment of extraordinary national trauma. And we're all feeling it. We're feeling it in our personal lives, and we're feeling it in our professional lives. And we're having to pull it together and do the job that we always do. And people are responding because people always do. The heroes in our space have just been absolutely extraordinary. I remember hearing folks, share at the beginning of the pandemic, what would happen? Would we lose folks in droves? And yet the anecdotes and the stories of heroes have just been extraordinary. Why the picture of the dog in the bed? Because I've had to learn myself that the fate of the world doesn't rest squarely on my shoulders. I have a team. I've got a community. I have all of you. I have my family. I have my neighbors. I have Americans across the country. We're in this together. But we need to take, we need to do what I call radical self-care. And radical self-care is ensuring that we're taking care of ourselves and we're letting go of what we need to let go of in order to make sure that we are there for the folks that need us so extraordinarily. And never have the stakes seemed as high as they seem now for our space. So yeah, Jamie, you got it. And I love the music you're making. I love the stuff you're doing. Keep doing more of it because we need it. Forgive me, I got a text message. I was afraid it was Scott telling me he couldn't hear me. I'm at the, okay, hang on a second. I need to unmute.
Before the session is over, we do have about 2 minutes left. So if you have one last question into the chat.
I love you guys. You've been troopers.
Okay, well, see. Oh.
I see it, Scott. I see it, Scott. Robert or Bob, asks, as for the increased enforcement of Olmstead, will the feds and advocates realize there isn't enough workforce to provide all these services that's disability rights of Ohio type folks keep pursuing. Hey Robert, for a hot moment, Ancor was getting ready to release at our conference in April a study that we did. We never ended up releasing it because COVID overtook it. But that study, really provided really strong empirical evidence for the first time across the country that providers have stopped doing what providers have always done, right? You don't have enough money, you don't have enough staff, but you keep on doing what you're doing. Let me repeat, you don't have enough money, you don't have a staff, but you keep on doing what you're doing. You keep accepting new people. That study showed that the workforce has had such a dire impact on our members across the country that that for the first time, providers were not accepting new referrals, and they were closing programs. We didn't release it with a big splash, but we've absolutely used it in our lobbying and our advocacy. And that was pre-COVID. In order to be able to ensure that people can navigate their communities, have access to the resources they need to lead the most meaningful lives they can, we need more staff. We need more staff. And so absolutely, Robert, I think that what we're going to need to do nationally is resurvey that. We know that the DSP workforce crisis is getting worse in states with more and more people not seeing this as a viable work option. So all hands on deck in communicating that message. Thank you for asking it. So anyone else? Or Scott, I guess we're out of time. Hey, all right, so let me just share what I was sharing when Scott was speaking. I love you guys. I wish I was there with you in person. Let's have that be for 2021.
Thank you so much. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties there, but really appreciate all the information, Barbara, and really great job. And so again, thanks everyone. I am going to go ahead and launch the evaluation poll for the session. Obviously, we know we had some technical difficulties at the start, so I'm sure you will evaluate accordingly with that. But again, really want to thank everyone and thank Barbara for joining us today. And we'll see everyone back here in the leadership at 11:45. Thanks again, everyone. I'll go ahead and launch that poll now.
Thank you.